What's up? This is Elan Jones, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the distinction between psychopaths and sociopaths and their profile. These people are more common than you think, and they're not necessarily how they portray them to be in the movies. So the psychopath, they make up 1% of the population. Sociopaths make up 4% of the population. There are more sociopaths than there are psychopaths. It's really hard to become a psychopath, actually, and a few things need to be in place that I'm going to talk about later on. Now, sociopaths are also 7 times more likely to be male than female. I think that number's off. It's about equal. There could even be more female sociopaths. Why is that? Because female sociopaths are more sophisticated than male sociopaths. That means that they're smarter about what they do. They're better able to hide their crimes. They're better able to blend in. They're better able to go undetected or be unsuspecting. They also have created something that they could hide behind. They have shaped society's view of women overall as unsuspecting, nurturing, benevolent, givers of life. So that's their cover. There are many female sociopaths who have children deliberately so they can get the title of mother and society can view them through that lens. But behind closed doors, they continue to be diabolical. They continue to behave the way that sociopaths behave and commit crimes that sociopaths commit. When the child is born, they don't take care of the child. I mean, they'll basically do everything just to keep the child alive, because if the child dies, then they won't have that title anymore. And people are going to ask them, why is the child gone? That's the only reason why. It's not funny at all. It's just they're so callous. It's hard to fathom. And I understand them so well that it's just hard to fathom. They look at human beings as objects. These women are also not diagnosed as much as men. Sociopathic women are hardly diagnosed, so that's going to also affect the numbers. So I want to talk about these illustrations for a bit. Off the bat, the psychopath looks like a white man. The sociopath, he looks like he could be black. He could be white. He could be other. But realistically speaking, at first glance, most might think that it's a black guy or maybe a white trash type of white guy. So the psychopath looks like a Caucasian male. He looks like he has money. His suit fits well. It's tailored. His shoes look nice. He's well groomed. He has a slender build. He has some height to him. He might be a handsome man. His body language. He looks relaxed, confident, important maybe. The sociopath. He looks angry, kind of scary. He looks like he commits crimes. He looks dangerous. He's wearing baggy clothes. He doesn't look like he has money. He's also slender. He might also be good looking. Now, before I go any further, I want to note that you may see that there are subliminal racial distinctions made throughout literature about these personality types. So if you read about this stuff more, you can tell who's put in a more positive light, who's put in a more negative light. You can tell who is protected, who you're supposed to have sympathy for, who you should excuse the behavior of, versus who's despicable, diabolical, low IQ, who's likely to be unproductive members of society. Now, I'm not trying to make this into a race thing. I'd like people to try to look at the reason for this in terms of not race, but IQ. I broke it down in my ADOS IQ video where I explained how people with higher IQ created the concept of IQ in the first place, and they'll always be at odds with the lower IQ people who are not like them. These types of personalities want everything to be in their image. And if it's not, it will be targeted and or used. So, some similarities and differences between the two personality types. Sociopaths are almost identical to psychopaths in terms of brain wiring, but they have physiological and social differences. Sociopaths are made, and psychopaths are born that way. Sociopaths have hormonal abnormalities that psychopaths don't have, and they're usually raised in an environment that's different from the psychopath, and these things would shape their personality. It would make them very different from the psychopath, even though they're essentially the same type of human being. Now, what would make a sociopath? Poverty, abuse, rejection, other traumas. Are they off the hook? No. They can choose not to cause harm. They can sublimate their antisocial tendencies like the psychopath does, but sometimes they're unable to. They're being blocked either by other sociopaths or by the psychopaths who control the environment the sociopath lives in. So, both lack empathy, both demonstrate complete disregard to social rules and behavior standards, both fail to feel any remorse or guilt, and they're saying that both are violent. That's not true. Not all sociopaths are violent. Not all psychopaths are violent. So what's different about them? So psychopaths are likely to be educated and have a good career, contrary to the sociopath. Sociopaths are likely to be uneducated and unable to keep a steady job, according to these people. Now, I don't agree with that. There are a lot of sociopaths who are in the workforce and they hold down jobs. The thing is, some things need to be in place. In order for that to happen, they usually need to be in a supervisory position or managerial position. They have to be over other people and they have to dictate what those below them do. You know, they need to be in that position. Psychopaths definitely need to be in that position. They need to be at the very, very top, and they position themselves there, and they're not trying to abdicate that position ever. And they'll never let a sociopath let them kick them off of that position. So sociopaths, they have to control their environment, and they don't like working under people or for people. They could tolerate this little job where they're a supervisor, but that's if the supply is good enough. This goes with any job. They'll hold down a job if the supply is good enough there. But for those who that doesn't do it for, they will usually be entrepreneurs. There's a good amount of entrepreneur sociopaths. It's because they just can't stand working for other people. They have to be the boss. Sociopaths have erratic behavior, rage, and anger. Psychopaths have controlled behavior. Psychopaths are cool, calm, and collected, no matter the situation. This is because they're very smart people, and usually they study various situations, they study various people, personalities, and they figure out who responds best to what, or, you know, when X happens, usually Y happens, and this yields the best outcome. So they go off of that. But aside from that, they don't really have much of a range of emotions in the first place. These are people who are devoid of many, many natural human emotions. They have to learn emotions, and they are actors. So you can't fly off into a rage if you don't have that emotional range. You never get pissed off. You just don't. You don't have that emotion. And if they go off into a rage, they would be faking that too. I don't know why they're this way. Sociopaths are the way that they are because of their hormonal abnormalities. So their hormones pretty much dictate how they act, how they respond to certain situations. Also, trauma history. Sociopaths are impulsive and spontaneous. Psychopaths are highly manipulative. Sociopaths may form an attachment to a particular individual or group. Now, sociopaths and psychopaths both have attachment issues, as do borderlines and narcissists. Issues, all of them, right? But psychopaths don't have an attachment to anything. There's no attachment whatsoever because they don't really have emotional needs. Sociopaths form attachments based on what it is that they need, but they can form attachments. So if they're attached to something, it's because that thing or a person is a means to an end. Groups, if they have an attachment to a group, it's because they want to seek cover within the group, so they're not found out. They want to be inconspicuous. It's a way for them to hide out. They hide in groups. They also eventually try to lead the group. So I just talked about sociopaths and work. They don't like to be up under people. They like to be over people, and they like to dictate what happens in their surroundings. So they try to lead the group. And they also like groups because of the dynamics of groups. There's a lot of different people, different personalities. There's a lot of supply within groups. There's a lot going on. Groups are dynamic. They're always changing. That's really interesting for the sociopath. Sociopaths like things that don't have them bored. Psychopaths, same thing. If they're bored, that means that their supply was taken away. Now, it could be a person, a job, a title, or a lifestyle. Things get dangerous if their supply is taken away. The sociopath will also use group members as a tool to harm someone outside of the group or an entire group, an entire other group. They'll use the group members as their flying monkeys. As far as attachments to individuals, sociopaths, they cannot love. But the closest thing to love that they'll get is that they can respect someone enough to not harm them or target them. So they do have certain people that they'll never hurt and that they'll even protect. It could be a family member, a child, a friend, a mentor. They do have these select people who are off limits. So it's a respect thing. They respect them enough to not harm them. If you know a sociopath, you need to be one of these people. If a sociopath does not respect you, you are in danger. Crimes committed by a sociopath are typically spontaneous, hence tendency to leave clues and evidence. Sociopaths are very sloppy with their crimes. They tend to get caught. They leave behind evidence. Some of them do it intentionally. They want to get caught. They want to be known for the crimes that they commit. I did a video on this last year. Or they want to go to jail. A lot of them welcome jail. They're not afraid of jail. They like it because jail has really good supply within it. It's just like the workforce, except the supply is way better. Prison dynamics are super exciting for the sociopaths, so they don't really care if they go to jail. It keeps them occupied. They won't be bored in there. So they will be reckless in society and then go to jail when they get caught. And that situation is a win-win for them. This is what makes them so dangerous. Psychopaths, they're more calculated. They're more covert. They dot their I's. They cross their T's. They're not trying to get caught. It's not that they're afraid to get caught so much as it is that they're afraid that they're going to lose supply. So if they go to jail, they're only afraid of jail, right? Because there is less supply in jail than there is outside of jail. That's it. I don't think they're necessarily afraid of jail. They want as much supply as they can get. They want to be the most powerful. They like that. Even though they don't have an ego, psychopaths don't have an ego to feed. They're not ego driven, contrary to the sociopath. And this is actually what gets the sociopath in trouble. This is what gets the narcissist in trouble, the borderline in trouble. This is why the psychopath is at the very top, because they don't care what anyone thinks. Now, it may seem like it doesn't make sense, but it's not about ego. It's about control for the psychopath. They want control of their environment and the people within it and the things within it. So they don't get in trouble for things that they did trying to feed their ego. This is why they're able to get away with their crimes. They're very careful. They try to avoid jail as much as possible because they have less control in jail. Psychopaths think big, global. Jail, again, it does not offer as much opportunity to commit crimes as they would like. That's it. All right, so the psychopathy checklist. Now, this checklist has traits of sociopaths and psychopaths on it. And that's because they both fall under different types of psychopathy. Primary psychopathy is that of a psychopath, and secondary psychopathy is that of sociopaths. So glibness, superficial charm. Now, this is the easiest way to be able to spot a sociopath or a psychopath. They have the superficial charm. This is something that they learned. They learned what works with people and how to woo them, and they act for everyone. And it's very superficial, and it seems fake. If you have good discernment, you could tell. And some other people might be able to tell. The glibness. That's the most important one. These people talk very fast. They talk like they're trying to sell something. It sounds insincere. They're just very glib. But the thing is, in today's society, we're very impressed by things that are fast. And we're very impressed by fast talkers like Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and whoever else talks a mile a minute. We think that they're very knowledgeable because they talk so fast. We think that they are superior to us because their brains work so efficiently and they talk so fast. And they must know what they are saying because they're talking so fast. You know, and you're not going to question what it is that they say most of the time, because when they talk that fast, all you want to do is give a round of applause. Now, Black people, we haven't always been known for being fast talkers and fast thinkers. So when our leaders are seen that way, either on TV or take a platform like this, people who have a large following, they usually talk very fast. So when they're seen that way, it's like, oh, I'm definitely going to get behind this sister or this brother, you know, because they're the real deal. They know what they're talking about and they're super smart. Meanwhile, they know you think this way and they're conning you. I don't know when people are going to wake up and realize this, but I'm just the messenger. That's number one on this psychopathy checklist. So, grandiose sense of self-worth. Need for stimulation, proneness to boredom, pathological lying, conning, manipulative, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow affect, callous, lack of empathy, parasitic lifestyle. So they need you in order to survive, and they leech off of you. They leech off of other people, of their environment, and the things in it that serve their needs. Without you, they die. So they're like parasites. You're the host. Poor behavioral controls, promiscuous sexual behavior, early behavioral problems, lack of realistic or long-term goals. Now, this one's really important. Let's take this platform as an example. There are a lot of people on this platform who are leading movements that they believe are going to last forever. I don't know why, but they believe it's going to last forever. Well, actually, this is why, right? Because they have spectrum disorders. And they have lack of realistic and long-term goals. That's why. So they think it's going to last forever. They think that their movement is going to be around in 2035. And I'd say that this pertains to the sociopath because the sociopath, the sociopath is impulsive and they usually ruin the track that they're on. Also, the sociopath does things for their ego. And that's not always necessarily what is effective, the most effective thing to do. So if you have this emotion driven, emotion created movement and you have impulsivity, you're not going to be very strategic. And you may think that you're being strategic, but you're not. On this platform, there are movements that are completely socially unacceptable, but because they're keeping it within the microcosm of this Black online community, for now, it's working for these people. But if it gets outside of the community, it's definitely not going to work, and it's going to turn against these people, unbeknownst to them right now, because their ego is driving them, and their ego is making them blind to the long-term ramifications of what they're doing. This is a good thing because, they ain't shit. So I'm happy about this. But again, I'm the messenger. This is what it is. So impulsivity, irresponsibility, failure to accept responsibility for own actions, many short-term marital relationships, juvenile delinquency, revocation of conditional release, criminal versatility. All right, careers. Here are two lists of jobs with the highest rates of psychopathy, and the other has the lowest rates of psychopathy as far as people who work in these fields. Now, both of these lists actually have about the same amount of psychopaths and sociopaths working within these fields. But why is the second list able to claim that there's a very low amount of psychopaths within it? Maybe it has to do with gender. There are more women working in those fields, and we know how female sociopaths operate. They're going to take cover within a group, and they're going to shape the narrative that is said about that group. They have led society to believe what they do about nurses, care aides, therapists, charity workers, social workers, teachers, doctors. You believe that these people are in the helping profession and they are benevolent and nurturing and they would never do anything wrong and they are never unethical. But more than half of the time they are. Lots of sociopaths in those fields, and this is a fact. I was on the website Sociopath World recently, and there were a bunch of social services workers, social workers, talking about how they love that they can hide there. There were some CPS workers. They enjoy the fact that they get to take people's children away. They enjoy the power that they have over other people's lives. They all mentioned how much they enjoy the power they have over other people's lives. It didn't shock me at all. None of this shocks me. I just want other people to be aware that this stuff is going on. As far as therapists are concerned, I've talked about therapists in the past. Rogue therapists, women who should not be therapists. And there's a show that I watched on Netflix. It only has one season. They canceled it. I hate when they do that because it was a great show. But it was called Gypsy. Naomi Watts is in it. It's about a psychologist who is on the psychopathy spectrum. And she was chasing supply throughout the entire season. which for her meant that she integrated herself into her patients' lives, but not overtly. And she kind of ruined their lives. And she used the information that they gave her during their sessions against them, which is the most egregious thing you could do. It's completely unethical. And more than half of psychologists and therapists and people in the mental health field have no problem with doing things like that. So I'm hoping that eventually people in society can wake up. So the takeaway is there are people with these personalities among us. Everyone with high IQ is mixed together. So you sometimes won't be able to tell, let's say, an empath from a psychopath or a neurotypical with leadership qualities versus the profile of a psychopath. For some, their discernment will let them know. For others, research will help you identify these types of people. That's all I have for today. I'll catch you in my next video.